This, ladies and gentlemen, is the 2024 Subaru Outback. Now, for those of you out there that aren't quite familiar with that name, you're probably looking at this automobile thinking, is it a wagon or is it an SUV? Well, the truth is, it's a little bit of both, and it also occupies a very, very unique position in the market. Now, on this episode of Behind the Wheel, let's take a look at the Outback's exterior, interior, cargo space, obviously, how the engine drives in different road conditions, mind you, and find out just exactly who this particular car is for, and also see if it could actually sway prospective crossover buyers. Are you looking to compare prices for your brand new car? Well then, visit AutoDeal.com.ph, select the car that you want, and choose to request for a quote from our network of over 500 official dealer partners nationwide. Within minutes, you'll start receiving offers from the dealers you've selected. All that's left is for you to select the deal that's best for you. Get the best deal on AutoDeal. Now, at first glance, the Outback gives you a very outdoorsy vibe to it, an outdoorsy feel. Well, if the name alone doesn't give it away. But really, when you look at it, it has the same vibe as a mountain climbing boot or a mountain bike, doesn't it? Up front, where you've got black plastic that spans the entire front clip really, which you can find down here. And then it's got in between some metallic accents found down there. You also have your fog lamps found down below. Now, when you move up, the grille and the headlamps are undeniably Subaru, which of course is all LED inside. Down the side, there's more black plastic that's found above the fenders, and then you're dressed with 18-inch wheels. Now, these alloys are of a good size, they're 18s, but I feel it's kind of a missed opportunity because it seems like they went all out to make it look outdoorsy and sportsy, but they kind of missed out on the wheels, I think. Good size, but you know what? The aftermarket segment in the Philippines will go goo goo gaga if you bring this car to them. Let us know, send us a picture. Up on top, you've got roof rails. Underneath, a very hefty 213 millimeters of ground clearance, which is definitely more than enough to get you through any ruts and crevices and moon-like surfaces that we have inside or outside the city, whether it's sunny or weather that you don't really understand. You've got covers on your side mirrors, which by the way have repeaters and a camera, a single camera on the right-hand side, which activates anytime that you indicate to the right. Right. Now, let's get to the rear. The rear, as you'd expect, is actually pretty standard for a 5-door automobile, albeit maybe you're used to something that's this wide to be a little bit taller, but it is a wagon after all. It is still a power tailgate, and you've got your Subaru lights that can't be mistaken for anything else at the rear, your third brake light, and because Jack spent all his money to buy as many eggs as possible, he asked that there be no fakery on this car whatsoever, so there's none. There's no fake exhaust underneath, no exhaust ports, but unfortunately, he used all his eggs for the exhaust and none on the weather. Thanks a lot, Jack. Priorities, dude. Mag-ayos ka. Sitting in the cockpit of the Outback, and we're just gonna open the sunroof here. It's a nice touch, by the way. Immediately, you're greeted by an 11.6 touchscreen infotainment system with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Now, that's a great screen, but it does take up a lot of real estate because then you miss out on certain buttons that would have been nice if you had physical buttons for certain functions. Like for instance, you do have controls for your audio. Yes, very, very easy to find. And you do have buttons, physical buttons to regulate the temperature inside the automobile. But to fix the air That's all inside the touchscreen itself. So there are layers that you need to get to that. And then there's also the fact that this one kind of annoys me, where I am not a fan of the auto start stop function. To turn that off, you have to get into the system and turn it off here on the screen. And every time you start the automobile, its default is to turn that back on. So you need to go back into the screen again to turn it on. So I think it could have been, it's a miss for me at least, that those buttons would have been nice if they were physical and very easy to reach. Bringing it back to the audio controls, I will say that the sound system inside this automobile is actually pretty decent. It is Harman Kardon. There's even a subwoofer at the back. I will, however, say that in this price range, although great as they are, I've actually heard better in the form of the Bose speakers that are available in the same price range, which is that of the CX-8. Your instrument cluster, you've got two analog gauges, which is very reminiscent of Subaru's, really, with a small trip computer found in the center, which has all the pertinent information that you may need, like your drive modes and, of course, your fuel efficiency. Everything else in the cabin is actually built pretty well, actually. There's no shaking or anything. The Napa leather feels good to the touch. There have been better Napa leather executions in other automobiles. This Napa leather is not shy on quality and softness by any means, but it's just that, well, Jack was the first one to mention it. Like, it doesn't feel exactly like Napa. It's got somewhat of a rubbery touch to it, but it's Napa leather nonetheless. On your steering wheel, a Subaru without a flat bottom. Thought I'd never see the day. With a lot of functions on it, you've got your audio controls on your left-hand side, including your phone, and then your cruise control on your right-hand side. And of course, because it's a Subaru, you've also got paddles. If by any chance you are a Subaru aficionado, that you would have known that back in the day, and I'm saying maybe about 2019, wow, how the term back in the day has really changed. This particular area, the gear lever, was actually already matte. Here, however, in the future, it's now piano black, and I don't know, man, it does look sophisticated, it does look upmarket, but you know, it would have been nice if they continued the brushed aluminum as Jack says it, all over the cabin, because that actually might have made it look a little bit sporty. Less elegant, yes, but then you wouldn't have fingerprints all over your automobile. Tech is actually pretty good inside this automobile in addition to what's already there. There's a cool feature where if you input your driver name and whatnot, the car will actually scan you. I don't know if it's using the EyeSight of the automobile, but it will scan you so that anytime you enter the automobile, it knows that it's you. And I did it while I was still wearing my glasses, which I think is a plus. That's a good plus. Now, the comfort up the rear is actually pretty good. I mean, just that's my normal driving position. Look at the amount of space that oh my God, it's more than one hand. That's my leg room, and the headroom is, again, also quite fantastic. Even if you put Jack back here, there's still a lot of room, whether he's sitting behind his driving position or not. There is a good amount of elbow room, too, for two large-size adults. This car's got girth, man. Even if you were to put a tiny adult like myself in the center, I don't think that would be an issue, so long as, like, again, a tiny adult. Still a good amount of headroom for the center passenger. That's spacious is what I'm getting at. Comfortable too, because the backrest, you can adjust it slightly. That's not slight, man, that's a lot. Wow, that's pretty good. Wow, look at that. Very, very comfortable back here. Toys include two air vents here found up front, so nobody has to fight for anything. Two USB charging points that are 2.1 amperes, type A. Bottle holders on either door, and cup holders, which is still has the plastic cup holders in the center armrest. However, I wish that they were a little bit bigger, because this is quite snug. Here it's okay, but on the door, not even my bottle, not Jack's bottle, I don't know if you can see this, but it will fit, but because of the height of my bottle, to force it in there, you might scratch the upholstery, and that, not so cool. But there are other cool things inside this automobile that I would really like to show you. Like, for instance, First cool thing is that you've got a multi-layered compartment here. You got a small tray, which you can put some trays on, and that's rubberized. You close it and you lift a different lever, and yep, it reveals then a large pocket for some additional storage. However, if you consider this as cool, well then congratulations, you need to schedule your very first colonoscopy. Next thing is that there are pocket lights. They're not mood lights, but they're pocket lights that can be found here at the door. So at night you can tell what it is that's inside. Now I'm going to start the engine and see if we can see it. Hang on, I'll be right back. Yep, I can see it. There are levers found in the back so that you can just flip it and then the backrest of the second row does fold over. As you can tell, Jack's bottle, which is very large, is relegated here to the back because unfortunately there aren't enough pockets and bottle holders that are big enough to hold this guy, which is a bit odd because since it is an outdoorsy automobile, I would have expected more storage, just a bit more storage. There is one last cool thing I need to show you before we go on to do it. I'm not supposed to throw this.
Don't throw it again.
Sorry.
Jeez.
That was a present from Jack's loved one. Sorry. When you open the power tailgate, it'll reveal about 522 liters of space, which is good enough for a balikbayan box. However, when you collapse the rear seats, you're looking at over 1,700 liters of space. Now, these 4 balikbayan boxes are in there very, very easily, I might add, which we can probably fit another pair of balikbayan boxes in there. The space in here is comparable to that of a 7-seater SUV, albeit the 7-seater SUV obviously will be much taller, whereas this guy is actually longer than it is taller.
Shut up.
I didn't say anything. So really, with all that space, you can probably fit everything but the girl. But don't worry, you can continue driving to one place. Nothing?
What are you saying?
Nothing?
No.
Ben Thorne, Tracy Watt, well, it was a stretch anyway. Okay, so from one end of the automobile, let's go to the other end of the automobile. Just before we go on a drive and the rain starts coming back down again, I want to quickly show you what is underneath, because this is important. Previously, what everybody was used to was a 3.6 flat 6. That was what was available. No longer. It's much more tamer now. Still capable, but it's much more tame at a 2.5 liter flat 4 that produces 185 horses and 235 Newton meters of torque. Now, mind you, when I say flat, it's because the cylinders are positioned in a flat manner. Now, this may not seem like a lot to a lot of people, but the truth is those that know that this balance of this engine is a little bit better because the center of gravity is much lower, which means it adds to the whole stability of the automobile. Now that it's also much more tamer, I would expect that the fuel efficiency numbers would actually be a little bit better. However, inside the city, we were only able to get about 7 kilometers per liter, much better on the highway at 16.5. However, those figures I think are actually okay because this, after all, is an all-wheel drive system. So there's that. Now, to get that out of the way, which we already did, let's go for a drive and see how she handles. Now, when Subaru mentioned EyeSight, boy, they weren't kidding. Because let's say, for example, you're on the road and you start getting a little bit sleepy and your eyes may come to somewhat of a close. Very dangerous. What it does is the car will actually alert you if that happens. Check it out. But then Earl had to be the wise ass and say, but what if you're Asian? You know, he's not wrong. Since we're already on the road, dressed as it is with great amounts of ground clearance, why don't we go for a drive and let's go through different road conditions and show you just exactly how capable this car actually is. In the city, you'd expect it to be a bit on the softer, the more forgiving side, because it is a wagon after all, well, albeit a lifted wagon, but I found it to be quite the opposite, really. I wouldn't say it's jarring, but it leans towards more the firm side. CVTs, unlike the current road of EDSA that we are right now, because it's rainy season, there are holes everywhere, but when they are executed well, it's done really, really well, and it pairs well with the engine. That is the case here with this Outback. The CVT, which is not my favorite transmission, actually works very well with the engine in this automobile. Whether you're in traffic or on the go, it feels like it's very responsive. I won't go as far to say that it acts like your typical automatic transmission. No, but it's done well. You know that rubber band effect that I've spoken about several times when it comes to a CVT? It's not present here. It's actually quite smooth. There is no wow, wow. No, none of that in here. The brakes, on the other hand, that you may need some time to get used to. Now, I thought it was because I'm a shrimp and I was too far away from the pedal, but it would bite a little bit too much because I would stretch too much. No, the brakes do need some getting used to. But hey, at the end of the day, at least they bite and they work really well, right? How great it must have been to drive the Outback when it still came with the 6-cylinder, 3.6 liter. Now, that's not to say that this current generation with the 2.5 naturally aspirated is boring. No, not at all. And it's not to say that it's also a rocket ship when you step on the accelerator. But when you do, and you use the paddles to downshift, the power comes in. It doesn't throw you in your seat, is what I'm getting at. But it's very, very linear. Imagine yourself to be, say, going uphill, and the power is non-stop. It just keeps going and going. It's not racing you up the hill, and that I like because it feels very stable. Stable too is the suspension. Now, earlier we mentioned that it is a bit on the stiffer side. That basically translates to when you're on the highway, it just means that it's really a lot more stable. And look, the steering wheel is just so calm and straight. It doesn't sway at all. So there is a bonus to that being more firm. NVH is great. If it was already good in traffic going over bumps, like it sounds like a leather basketball when you put it up against or bounce it up against a wooden floor. Even on the highway, it sounds even better. It's just so good. And the NVH, wind noise. I'm going 80 kilometers right now. There's a couple of buses to my left and one behind me. Nothing. I don't hear anything. I like it. It is most definitely a great highway automobile because it's very calm, stable. I've mentioned all of that. Plus, you've got the EyeSight, which is innate to all Subarus. So it's got low-speed follow. It's got adaptive cruise. So basically, it's like, I'd say that this may actually even be a great tourer. Now, while the name of this automobile does suggest that it's quite outdoorsy, we don't necessarily have an Outback available to us, but I can tell you that the car is capable of traversing through most roads in and out of the city, whether it's traffic-laden potholes in the city or a bit of off-road, to roads that don't end, to roads where we don't understand exactly what the weather is like and what conditions that it may throw at us. Like, is this fog, smog, rain, ice? I don't know. Are we gonna slip? I hope not. No, we won't, because it's an all-wheel drive system. Aha! The engine response is very predictable. Now, I don't mean that in a very bad way. I actually mean it in a very good way, because there's no guesswork to when the engine is going to come in or not. Whether you're going downhill or uphill, it knows exactly, or rather you know exactly when the engine is going to power up and push you, or rather pull you and slow you down. When you're on twisties such as this, the steering is actually very good. It has a very good communication with the driver. There's no guesswork there. It tells you exactly where it wants to go. You point the automobile and it just simply goes in that direction. Then there's the fact that the traction of the automobile is superb, whether it's wet conditions such as where we are right now, or dry conditions when you're barreling through the twisties. Because of the all-wheel drive system, you really do feel very planted. Overall, the drive feel of the engine, transmission, and the all-wheel drive system makes for a very, very good automobile. Now that we've driven this automobile in very many driving conditions, it can bring us back to answer the questions that we had at the very beginning of this video, such as number one, who exactly is this automobile for? And number two, could it possibly sway those that are in the market strictly for a crossover? We can answer both those questions with one answer. It is built for the outdoors person. And obviously, because it's built for the outdoors person, it can achieve all those things that crossovers can do, albeit in a package that's very, very different. Now, the 2024 Subaru Outback comes in at an even 2.5 million Philippine pesos, minus all the dirt that we actually put on this, which is a good price considering the company it keeps. It's in the same vicinity of the likes of Mazda CX-5 Turbo, CX-8, obviously, the Toyota RAV4, and the Kia Sorento. Now, while all those cars are well and good, I'd have to say that I wouldn't be the first one to say that those cars lean more towards being used inside the city because of, well, how we treat them. This car, however, because of the way it looks and because of its capabilities, it actually can achieve that particular lifestyle. It's difficult to look at this automobile and not think that you could quite easily strap on a pair of bikes out back and perhaps maybe a canoe or a surfboard up on top with enough room inside to carry even a Roo and a dingo. Oh my God, that was horrible! Horrible!